When I was in a slightly lower vibrational state is when I followed the work of Dr. York. And I say that because Dr. York work, and I don't even know why I call him Dr. York, but Malachi York's work was based on racial supremacy. In the same way that white supremacy has altered the state of Christianity, especially once the Europeans truly took control over it, which would have been the moment the Romans took control of it in 325 CE. York's work is based on taking black people who already feel oppressed, mixing up the wording and the teachings of Islam and Christianity to make you feel empowered while you are in a state of oppression. This is what grew one of the big things that helped to grow the black Muslims in America, and which is also what helped to grow the Nuwampians, to which they were down in Waycross, Georgia at a point in the early 90s, and that's when I actually went down and I actually met Malachi York. I stayed down there for like a weekend, and I left feeling more empowered as a black man. I left feeling like I wish I hadn't joined the Marine Corps and I could come down here and be on the compound, because at that time frame of black empowerment in my, 19, 20 years old, I felt the oppressive nature of living in the South, and York presented something that made you feel proud as a black man. I had all the little pamphlets. I took those pamphlets with me to Desert Storm, of his different teachings, Ice Cream Man, the different teachings of the Nuwampian right knowledge. But then the more and more I grew in my studies, the more and more I started to understand things, I realized that Malachi York was teaching information based on a black power narrative and changing things to fit that black power narrative. So for instance, you bring up the fact that York was explaining his story of Noah. Well, based on the Enochian literature, it is not Canaan who was born albino. It is Noah himself who was born albino, according to the Enochian version, as well as the Atrahasis version. It is the Noah character who is born albino, whose eyes light up the room. But the rest of the biblical story concerning Canaan is exactly what the biblical story is saying, that Canaan was born to be the slave of his other brothers, although he never became the slave of his father's children. He never became that slave. Mizraim never became the slave. The Hamites never became the slaves. None of those things happened. And the Europeans were not coming from the children of Canaan, because the Europeans already existed during this time frame. You see, the Noah story had to have happened chronologically in around 2200 BCE. Well, in 2200 BCE, there were already tribes of people in Britain. There were already tribes of people in France and Germany and Spain and all throughout Europe. There were tribes of people all throughout Asia. There were tribes of people all throughout the world before the Noah story, during the Noah story, and the same tribes of people after the Noah story. So how can the children of Noah become the Europeans? How can the children of Noah become the Polynesians, become the people in the Americas, when there are already people there at the same time that this so-called flood was happening and when it ended? You see, when you look at it scientifically, you start to see that people like Malachi York is basically trying to change the narrative of a story that should be unbelievable. But in order to create his group in the mid 1900s. In order to create his groups and then to build a compound in Georgia, he can't take everything away from what the people already believe. So we got to mix a little Bible and mix a little Quran and take a little bit of, and then give it a swerve, a black swerve to it, in order to make the black people who are feeling oppressed still giving them their Jesus and so on and so forth, and then section them off into a compound. It's called a cult. It's the same thing that David Koresh did. The same thing that Jim Jones did. The same thing they did at Falls Gates. It's the same damn thing. All he did was create a black cult. And what's funny is that there was a young lady who was down there at the Nuwampian camp, right? I never met her until 2018. We happened to be having a conversation and it came up, and she was at the camp at the same time that I visited. She was at the camp when Malachi York was molesting children. So, tell you where the man's mind's at. Now, does a person's behavior mean that the information is invalid? It doesn't. I still listen to R. Kelly music. I just don't care for R. Kelly. But the music ain't got nothing to do with the man. The information shouldn't have nothing to do with the man. But in this case, Malachi York is just another con man. He's a black guy who decided he had a way to create a cult. Maybe he started out legit and thought that he was going to be uplifting black people in an oppressed country and help them to find their way. And the power went to his head. And now he's still serving prison time in Georgia because of it. And when he get out, there will be plenty of people who are going to follow him, because the brainwashing is thick, especially on the lower vibrational thoughts of people. Because when you look at history, science, with a critical mind, you will recognize that this type of information is just made to swerve people easily to be able to create a group, a cult, control, and that's it. And it's the same thing that religion has done. So yeah, you asked me to read it. I've already known his information for 30 plus years. And it only took me about a year after that visit to realize that Malachi York is full of shit, just like the rest of the Bible, just like the rest of the Quran, just like all these books. Full of shit. All these religions is based on controlling people. They all started as cults and became normalized as more and more people followed them. But if you want to follow somebody like that, you are more than welcome to. If you still feel that you have to have black supremacy, you are more than welcome to. Because people are always going to find a way to hate each other until we rise above it and increase our mental vibration to realize that race is not a thing of reality. It is something that we created. We do not say that the lion and the tiger are different races because they're both cats. They're not. They're part of the big cats. They're same species. Just as much as your house cat, it is a part of that same species. Humans do not have different species based on how much melanin is in their skin, but yet we create that ourselves. That's ridiculous. We need to grow up. We need to increase our vibration and realize that how much melanin you have doesn't make you superior to no one else in general. Yeah, you can stay out in the sun longer than another person, but beyond that, doesn't make you more intelligent, doesn't make you stronger, it doesn't make you better to where the others are inferior to you. That's a low vibrational thought. But y'all have a great day, and always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.